I'm Cindy Lauper with fellow Cosentyx advocate, Chef Michelle Bernstein.
We'll share our experiences with plaque psoriasis, with psoriatic arthritis, and Dr. Panico will talk about the possible connection.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur.
Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com/Cindy.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. Obviously, the whole world has been abuzz. And when I say the whole world, I don't just mean the whole country or the whole political world or the whole conspiracy world. I mean the whole world has been abuzz with the news of the release of these John F. Kennedy assassination documents. Thousands and thousands of documents, some of which are hundreds of pages, some thousands of pages. And a lot of people are combing through these documents, trying to find something, trying to find answers to some questions. Well, a guy that has been asking questions about the Kennedy assassination for some time is Mark Shaw. Mark Shaw is a recovering attorney. He's also an investigative journalist and author of several books, New York Times best-selling books, including Fighting for Justice, the Improbable Journey to Exposing Cover-Ups about the JFK Assassination and the deaths of Marilyn Monroe and Dorothy Kilgallen. He's also one of my favorite people to talk to. Mark, it's great to have you back on the program.
Oh, thank you, Frank. I'm honored to be on your program. Thanks.
Mark, I don't know if what I'm about to mention to you is a sore subject, and I want to focus mostly on the Kennedy assassination documents, but I have to ask you about it because for the last decade or so, you have been so associated with Dorothy Kilgallen. And whenever I come across Dorothy Kilgallen's name, I think of you. I don't think of What's My Line or WOR Radio. I think of Mark Shaw. And I saw back in January, there was an article about the Dorothy Kilgallen death and the fact that she might have been killed as a result of foul play because of her work into the Kennedy assassination. It's basically your entire premise of the book, The Reporter Who Knew Too Much. And yet, I tried to do some research, and it didn't look like you were involved in this project or that you had written this screenplay. Did they just rip you off for this film? What happened here?
Okay, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, I got quite a shock first part of the year there, or end of last year, really, when, I have a lot of supporters out there. We have about 5,000 emails that we send out to these people, and they send me things, and they sent me an article in what's called Deadline, which is like the Hollywood Reporter and Variety. Every day they put out the news about Hollywood, and I got this email, and I went to the site, and they were announcing the fact that Jessica Chastain and Robert De Niro and we're going to star in a film. Barry Levinson, the famous Academy Award-winning director, was directing the film, and they were going to do this, and it was all about the JFK assassination, basically through the eyes of Dorothy Kilgallen. So I started going ahead and looking at the press release that they had. People can go up and see that, and they'll, I think, come to the same conclusions that I did, is the fact that the script that they were going to use basically was based on my books. And we looked very carefully. A couple legal beagles looked at it, and friends and things like that. Gloria Allred, who's my friend out in Los Angeles, the famous lawyer, she looked at it. Everybody looked at it and said, "Come on, Mark, they're ripping you off." And we could tell by some of the things, Frank, that were in there. One of them was that in the press release they mentioned that Dorothy had a back channel into the Warren Commission, and I think you and I discussed this before, that she became friends with Senator John Sherman Cooper, who was a Warren Commission member, and learned a lot about corruption at the Warren Commission through him. But that material was never seen in anything, film, book, television, whatever, except for Fighting for Justice. So we were able then to go ahead and I went ahead and got in touch. A couple of lawyers wanted to take this over, but I wanted to see if I could do something with it on my own. So I sent a long email to one of the producers, and I just told him what I thought they were doing, and I wanted them to stop. Well, it was interesting because also Sue Edelman there at the New York Post wrote an article about that. When she was also writing about the DA Bragg not investigating Dorothy's death. And so it was interesting because a couple of weeks went by, and then from a colleague of mine in L.A., I found out that they had put the film on hold, so to speak. Now, I've since learned that they had money problems. The people who were going to finance the film weren't able to come up with all the money. But I'm being told that the fact that I sent that material to them and said, hey, you can't do this, or we're going to end up in court, had a lot to do with them stopping it. Now, I don't want to go any more into this except this. Right now, it's not dead because two of the producers sued each other over Levinson being involved in the film and so on and so forth that way. So it may rear its head again, but it was just shocking. It's a multi-million-dollar film, Frank. Right. All they had to do was option my books.
Right. That's what I don't understand. Why there would be this kind of controversy. It seems if they're going to invest this kind of money in stars, A-list directors, that would have been a relatively easy thing to do. It's shocking to me. Absolutely shocking.
That's Hollywood.
yeah, I guess it is. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight, talking with Mark Shaw. The recent JFK document releases don't seem to include any bombshells regarding Dorothy Kilgallen or Carlos Marcello. Do you think key documents are still being withheld, or is it possible that the conspiracy theories about her death have been overstated?
Well, I look at this as a historian, and I just want to quickly mention to you how we got to this point. When JFK died, what was the investigatory body? Well, it was the Warren Commission. And we'll talk about Dorothy, but basically, and many others through the years believed that what they went ahead and found Oswald alone made no sense whatsoever. In fact, the chairwoman of the task force that we'll talk about, that I'm trying to get to include Dorothy Kilgallen's evidence and mine in, has said now, for whatever reason, and she doesn't give any evidence for it, that she now believes there were two shooters. Anyway, that was the Warren Commission. The next was the House Select Committee on Assassinations. And that was a pretty prestigious committee, and they came up with the idea that, yes, there were more than one person involved in the assassination. They pointed at Carlos Marcello and the Mafia, but they said they couldn't prove it. Next was the Church Committee, which is Frank Church, the senator from Montana, I think. They investigated the assassination, and they came up with the idea, I just wrote it down the other day, that federal agencies, the FBI and the CIA, had failed in their duties and responsibility, and that the investigation in the assassination had been deficient. So that was the last one that we saw, was that one. And now we come up with these releases of the records, and this task force that's going to look into the JFK assassination, and also Robert Kennedy, which I want to talk about tonight because I have new information about his death. But, what documents were we given? Well, I've gone through all of the, not every piece of information about the documents, all the pages and everything else like that at the National Archives. Unfortunately, they've made it as hard as they can for anybody to go through there because it's not very well organized. This whole release of the documents wasn't very well organized. For instance, I think Frank, they left some phone numbers in there that weren't redacted of people who were involved with the CIA or involved with the investigation.
And Social Security numbers as well.
Yeah. And one of them, by the way, I recognize was Joseph de Geneva.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
he was not happy.
No, he was not, and he was I don't know if he was Attorney General or he was
U.S.
whatever.
Attorney. Right.
But he's also, I know of him because I wrote a book about Jonathan Pollard, the spy, and he's the one that double-crossed Pollard's legal team. Pollard was supposed to get a light sentence, and then Geneva ended up, telling the court that wasn't what should happen, and Pollard ended up with life in prison. But it's kind of helter-skelter how they did this, and I want to mention what I believe is in there that's of value, but also I don't believe we've even come close to getting all of the documents at all. So I've gone through the records and everything, and I did find some things in there that kind of, hit me. There were, I think what you'll mostly come up with if you look at it, though, is it was about the CIA running wild in the 1960s. I'm looking at one document in front of me now where they were wiretapping, they were following people, they were, making up excuses to put somebody under arrest so that they could, interrogate them. I mean, there's all kinds of dirty tricks in there that they were doing. And so I think that's mostly what you read. Now, a lot of people feel like that was, that's helpful because it also showed in some of the documents that they were pursuing Lee Harvey Oswald, but they pursued him in a way that you talk about wasted taxpayers' money. They sent 12 FBI agents to Helsinki to see about Oswald being there, and they spent a week trying to figure out how long it took him to drive. It would have taken him to drive from his hotel to the airport. There's things in there that make you kind of laugh, but also make you wonder, what in the world were they trying to do? So what we have here in these documents, and I know we don't have the time to go through a lot of them, but basically what you find is about the CIA. They're tracking Oswald, Mexico, all over the place. They're doing that. And then also this Oswald alone theory that J. Edgar Hoover came up with, they are convinced that is the person. So there's nothing in these documents about Marcello. Disappointing to me, there's nothing in there about Dorothy Kilgallen, and I want to talk about that in a little while. There's nothing in there about, get this, one of the duties of this task force is to look into the death of Robert Kennedy. Well, there's nothing in the documents about Robert Kennedy other than a few mentions about him being Attorney General. There's nothing about his death. So I'm very suspicious that something's up here, that we're still not getting these documents. Mm-hmm. And what really hit me hard was the fact that I found the fact that there were 2,400 FBI documents that were never given to the archives, and those have not been released this week. So where are those? And what was most interesting to me there is that I found at one particular point the Mary Farrell Foundation, which is a very reputable organization looking into the JFK assassination.
Their lawyer was on with me last night,
Okay.
Larry Schnapf, but you're right, they are very reputable. By the way, if people are tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. We're talking with Mark Shaw, who has researched the Kennedy assassination and the death of Dorothy Kilgallen more than any other human being alive. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm just going to ask you a favor, and I want to wait till we're off the air. I'd like to get in touch with Larry. He and I were keeping in touch for a long time.
I'll connect you guys via email, absolutely.
But I've lost the email. Yeah. So in those 2,400 documents, I don't know if he mentioned it, there's one that says jailhouse recordings of mobster Carlos Marcello, who claimed he was involved in the assassination. Well, what hit me hard there is that I've discovered through research for my new book, Injustice of the First Degree, which will come out in the fall with new information, that there's a Marcello confession that I found, and I don't know if you know about that or not, but there is one, and it supposedly was done in prison, which those documents refer to. And I found it in the FBI files, and basically what it says is Carlos Marcello discussed his intense dislike of John Kennedy, as he often did, unlike other such tirades against Kennedy. However, on this occasion, Marcello said, referring to President Kennedy, "Yeah, I killed the SOB. I'm glad I did, and I'm sorry I couldn't have done it myself. I had him killed." and there's a witness that says that that's what Marcello told him now, or said to him. Now, I'm always a little suspicious, as you probably are, Frank, of mafioso being quoted for something because, as you know,
it's a secret society.
That the Omerta, they are supposed to keep their mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems logical. Well, if that's in those 2,400 documents, those need to be released. And there's other documents, one in here where they do talk about the fact that the CIA never looked into Carlos Marcello, which is just absurd if you can think about it. I mean, he was obviously had the greatest motive to have had JFK killed because he wanted to make Bobby Kennedy powerless so they would leave him alone. So that's what I found in the documents, and I could go into specifics, but I know we don't have that much time. So what is there and what is not there is the problem that I see. And I while they were jumping up and down about giving us everything, I don't believe that that's what has happened. I'm not sure what will occur with that now. Now, this task force, you've probably read about it. The president appointed, I think there are 15 members of this task force to look into government secrets, but two of the main focuses are the JFK assassination and the Robert Kennedy death. So I was most interested in that because when I heard about it and I looked at some of the statements, the chairwoman of that committee, it'd be interesting if you could get her on your program sometime. Her name is
Congresswoman Luna.
Anna Paulina Luna. She's a Republican from Florida. Doesn't have any experience. None of these people have any experience as investigators or lawyers or anything. But anyway, they're going after this. And what I saw was that to begin with, they took a trip, a bunch of them, to Dallas. And they went to Daley Plaza. And they went to the absurd scam infected sixth-floor museum, which is a shrine to Oswald. They talked to a few people who were kind of peripheral to the Warren Commission. And boy, it scared the hell out of me because are we going to go through this again? Are we going to go through all this Oswald alone stuff and everything else? But I did see that Congressman Luna said, she gave no evidence as to why, but maybe you read the statement by her that she said that she believes now, after just a little bit of research and investigation, there were at least two shooters. So that kind of gives a little bit of hope that they will open the door to all kinds of other theories than Oswald alone. So I wrote her a long letter. It's up on my website that people can look at markshawbooks.com or wherever. And I wrote her a letter, and I said, you said this about your thinking two shooters, and I said, such a conclusion fits in with the research I have conducted for 15 years with Dorothy Kilgallen and so on and so forth, and I would like to offer my research to you, my evidence to you, so that you'll be able to include that with what the investigation will be, but especially about Dorothy Kilgallen. And I went on and on. You and I have talked about this before. The most credible reporter to have investigated the JFK assassination, no question about that. Who she was, the What's My Line star, a newspaper column syndicated to 200,000 people a day. New York Post called her the most powerful female voice in America. She covered the Lindbergh case, the Dr. Sam Shepard case. I mean, she was the real deal. And when JFK died, it was personal for her because JFK had invited she and her son, or her and her son, I'm not too good sometimes with English, to the White House and made a big fuss over little Carrie and the letters he brought from his third grade class. And so when JFK died, she wrote a column, and I also sent to Congresswoman Luna Dorothy's 11 different columns that she wrote once JFK had died, starting with Oswald alone. But it was personal for Dorothy, and she wrote in a column, what I remember is a tall man stooping over a little boy, congratulating him on bringing these letters from his third grade class. This is the man who died, who was assassinated in Dallas. So what did she do, Frank? Well, she went right to Dallas. Now, I'm very respectful of all of these other experts, even Larry, and he knows this, and everybody else There's a guy named Jefferson Morley. There's all of these other experts and all these authors through the years. But they share something with me. They weren't there.
Right.
I wasn't there. Dorothy Kilgallen was there. She's an eyewitness to history. Now, I'm not saying you have to buy everything that she wrote about the assassination and everything else, but I always say to people, do you think it's possible she could have had it right? Because basically, they killed her. Because they couldn't let her write a tell-all book for Random House and all of that. So I put all that in my letter. I sent it to Congresswoman Luna, her cohort, Representative Comer, and I think there was 8 or 9 of them. I sent that to them because I wanted them to know about this, and I said, please, 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 I want to contribute my evidence to you and be included so that you at least have this information along with the other information you have. Well, that was March 11th, and I have yet to hear from them. I have some of my friends who are Republicans, and I do have friends that are Republicans who are doing everything to try to get them to include Dorothy Kilgallen. My evidence is fine, but Dorothy, if you look at her columns that she wrote, they've killed my president. You can't close the door on the Oswald file. Why did Oswald shoot Officer Tippit? It made no sense whatsoever. And then, of course, as you know, Frank, and you see I get so excited about this because it's so important, she was at the Ruby trial, and she interviewed Jack Ruby 3 times, and she heard Ruby's admission through somebody that heard him say this, I will be there when Oswald is being transferred. I mean, she did all that, and then, of course, through John Sherman Cooper at the Warren Commission, she got the Warren Commissioned Ruby testimony before it was supposed to be released. She printed it on the front page of the Journal American, her newspaper, and what happened about 2 weeks after that, J. Edgar Hoover sent 2 or 3 agents to her home, sit across from Dorothy, these bulky agents. I have this vision of what it would be like. She didn't ask for a lawyer. Who's your source? Where'd you get this? And all of, and I think this might have shown her courage at its greatest at that point. She said, I would rather die than give you my sources, and she never did. So we can go on and on about her investigation. We don't know what Ruby told her because when she died in 1965 under mysterious consequences, and I have proven that she was poisoned with 3 barbiturates, her JFK assassination file and her book manuscript from Random House were both stolen. So all I'm asking of the task force, and I've asked people who listen to me or whatever during my interviews, if they feel strongly about this as I do, please get in touch with the task force and say to him, hey, not only should you look into Dorothy Kilgallen's investigation of the JFK assassination, but how about looking into her death as well? Because it's still a mysterious death. There was no investigation of her death whatsoever that way. So that's kind of the long and short of where I am with this, but I'm trying to stand up for Dorothy and get some justice for her as she deserved back in 1965, but never has gotten it.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Let me end with this, Mark, and there's never enough time, no matter how long we get to speak, whenever we're together. If Dorothy Kilgallen was murdered to silence her, and the missing dossier that you just alluded to was taken by government agents,
right?
Do you think that it's still hidden somewhere, or do you suspect that it was destroyed entirely?
Oh, I guess the common sense approach to that, and that's what I try to do with all of my research based on motive and so on and so forth as a former criminal defense attorney. I would have to say that I believe there was a raid of her townhouse that I have proven happened right after her body was found. by an eyewitness, the butler's daughter, who was there. And they took everything that was in the townhouse, all of that. I have to believe that was probably Marcello's people, perhaps Hoover's, whatever it was. And my bet is that they probably burned all that material. But there's the outside chance that they may not have. That's why I was so excited when I heard that all of these records were coming out, because I thought, come on, maybe those records are in there. But they're not. And as I said, there's a lot of things missing in there. I finally been able to connect the deaths of not only JFK, Dorothy Kilgallen, but also Robert Kennedy in this new book that we can talk about in the fall, Injustice of the First Degree, because Marcello was involved with that. I've connected Marcello with Sirhan. So all this was going on, and Dorothy was in the middle of it. And I would hope at some particular point, we asked Bragg, your DA there, to investigate Dorothy's death. The NYPD, we asked them, and they both said they would do that. Bob Holden, who is a councilman there in Queens, took it upon himself after reading my books to send requests to both of those agencies to look into Dorothy's death, and they both said they would, and then they both broke the promise that they were going to.
Mark Shaw, I really appreciate the time. If people want to check out some of your books, not just on this subject, although I think I've read 4, and each one has been more captivating than the next, they can go to markshawbooks.com. That's markshawbooks.com. And there's a ton of other interesting stuff on subjects related to Larry Bird and Mike Tyson, to, the Jonathan Pollard case that you just mentioned. Mark, it's always a treat. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Frank. You're a good man. I really have a lot of respect for you, as you know, and I appreciate your having me on the program. Thanks.
Well, likewise, it goes both ways. If anyone wants to comment on our conversation, you can give me a call. Our phone number is 646-720-0635. That's 1-646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.